dopamine is an important neurotransmitter to be able to achieve erections. Hey guys, I'm Jonathan White. I'm here to help you master your sexual energy so that you can magnetize your ideal life. Make sure you grab my free ejaculation control guide. There's a link in the video description below. So I want to talk about dopamine and its relationship to sexual health, specifically men being able to achieve healthy erections. So dopamine is one of the primary neurotransmitters in the body, and it's known as the reward chemical and also the pleasure chemical. So there's a lot of different actions and behaviors you do that release dopamine into the nervous system. You know, when you accomplish something, let's say you have a hard task you're working on and you finish it, you get a little burst of dopamine. Or when you're working out at the gym, you finish a workout, you're getting some dopamine release. Also, in our recent age of technological development, a lot of activities that you do on a computer or smartphone tend to release a lot of dopamine, things such as social media, porn especially. So when dopamine's released, it affects areas of the brain that are directed towards your impulses, kind of your goal-oriented behaviors, kind of your reason for doing things, right? A lot of your behavior response, as well as your memory and hormone management areas of the brain. So basically it means when dopamine's released, you know, it starts to ingrain these habits in your body and in your brain. So let's say you work out at the gym, you get a nice workout, you get a dopamine release that way. The brain says, okay, this feels good. I should keep doing this. And you have the desire to go back to the gym continuously and keep working out. But at the same time, the problem, again, in our technological age is that things such as social media and porn tend to release a lot of dopamine. Every time you're scrolling through, you know, social media, you see an image, you see another image, you get release after release of dopamine. You open a new browser on your internet and you get a hit of dopamine. Or when you're watching porn, you know, you're looking at video after video, you're looking at naked body after naked body, you're getting hit after hit of dopamine. So it starts to overload you. And again, you start to get ingrained into these habits because they're locked in your memory, they become part of your behavior, so you become very impulsive seeking out these dopamine releasing activities. So training your dopamine response in a balanced way is one of the keys to having, you know, stable mental health, overall happiness and satisfaction in life. There's nothing inherently wrong with dopamine. We need it to feel a sense of satisfaction and completion in our life, right? The problem isn't coming from the fact that dopamine is being released. It comes from when we're having excessive amounts of dopamine, basically overstimulating ourselves to release excessive dopamine. This is what drugs do. Again, this is what porn and spending a lot of time on social media does to us. When the brain is starting to release excessive amounts of dopamine, which happens when you're looking at porn or when you're spending like hours and hours, you know, on the internet, browsing through social media and things like that, or taking drugs, you're releasing so much dopamine that it kind of starts to burn out the receptors. And sometimes the receptors actually shut themselves off because the brain says, okay, something's wrong here. I should not be releasing this much dopamine. So it starts to burn out these receptors. And what happens is now you have less receptor sites available for dopamine, meaning that you need these high dopamine releasing activities just to feel normal. So what happens is, again, you become locked into these short-term sort of gratification patterns, looking at porn, browsing through social media all the time, taking drugs. You need to keep doing those things just to feel normal. You don't even really feel like really good anymore like the first time you did. You just feel normal, right? Because when you're not doing those things, you're experiencing symptoms of low dopamine. You're experiencing depression, brain fog, apathy, insomnia, right? All of these symptoms of dopamine deficiency. You're unable to focus properly. So it starts to wreak havoc on your brain chemistry. And again, this is kind of the downward spiral of porn addiction, is that you need to look at porn every day to feel normal because your dopamine receptors are burned out. So this is where the problem comes from, is you're engaging in these overstimulating activities that are burning out your dopamine system, and you need to keep doing those just to feel normal, right? Normal things such as, like, you know, just walking in the park, reading a book. These things don't really appeal to you anymore because your dopamine threshold is so high at what you need to feel normal that these other things just don't appeal to you anymore. So you need, you know, porn, you need drugs, you need to browse through social media to feel normal. So this is where the problem comes from in dopamine, and how this relates to sex, and especially being able to achieve an erection for men. So there's something that's known as porn-induced erectile dysfunction, and this is directly related to your dopamine levels. Dopamine is an important neurotransmitter to be able to achieve erections. It's very much in line with being able to sustain erections, basically, right? You need to have healthy dopamine levels. So when you're watching porn all the time, again, you're dopamine desensitized, meaning that you need high levels of dopamine just to feel normal. So you're used to watching porn all the time. You're able to get erections and feel aroused normally because you're being stimulated in such a way. But when you're in a real life situation with a real partner, which let's face it, just isn't as exaggerated and stimulating as most porn is, then you find yourself unable to get sufficiently aroused because you're dopamine desensitized and you don't have that balanced level of brain chemistry to be able to achieve an erection. Or maybe you get one for a little bit, but it starts to go away. This is another common problem, men being unable to hold an erection throughout sex. And it's very much related to your dopamine levels. Now, there can also be physical causes of erectile dysfunction, of course, but basically, if you experience morning erections, which most men do, then you do not have physical erectile dysfunction. If you experience morning erections, but you can't seem to hold an erection during sex or even get aroused during sex, then this is very likely due to dopamine imbalances in your brain. So another thing is when you're dopamine desensitized, you often have a very short attention span because your brain is constantly seeking stimulation because that's what you're used to, is this constant stimulation. And again, this becomes a problem during sex because you may feel that initial excitement and arousal and get an erection during sex, but because there's nothing new stimulating you, there's not a new image or something coming in, then all of a sudden your levels start to lower and your erection goes down. So it causes you to have this very short attention span and constantly be seeking short-term gratification, meaning that you need like instant gratification, very stimulating things in the least amount of time. So these are, again, the issues that dopamine desensitization causes. So this is something I personally experienced. A few years ago, several years ago, I actually got rid of my smartphone. I partially did it to save money, but also I was realizing how much of a distraction having a smartphone was for me, so I got rid of it. And for 4 years, I didn't have a smartphone from 2013 to 2017, and I had the greatest clarity, the greatest attention span. I also had the most potent sexual vitality I've ever had during this time period. So in 2017, of course, I got a smartphone. I was starting my business. I felt like I kind of needed one, posting videos on YouTube and things like that. So I got a smartphone, and what I found was that let's face it, it's easy to get pulled into when you have a smartphone, when you're on a computer. It's easy to get pulled into social media. You're spending all this time looking at your phone, and again, it completely throws your dopamine receptors out of balance. I noticed that all of a sudden I felt very distracted. I was very scattered. I had a hard time focusing on one task at a time. And I'm like, what's going on? I never had this problem before. And something else I realized was that during sex, I had trouble maintaining erections. And I was like, okay, something's wrong here. I know I'm very, very healthy, I'm very fit, but I'm having an issue staying hard throughout sex. Like, what's going on here? And this is, eventually I was looking into all this stuff about dopamine desensitization, and it brought me to the realization of, wow, because I spend so much time, and I had actually quit porn at this point, so porn wasn't really an issue here, but because I spent so much time looking at a screen, on social media, interacting, getting all these dopamine releases, I was a bit dopamine desensitized, and it was coming through in my, first of all, just my ability to focus and concentrate, but also my sexual vitality, my ability to sustain an erection. So I started to become very conscious of this and start to limit, my screen time, start to engage more in more grounded activities that don't involve a computer screen, and this problem started to go away. So I'm sharing this with you because I think that this is a major issue that many men in this world are struggling with. Men in their 20s are starting to reach out to me saying that they're having trouble experiencing erections, they're having erectile dysfunction. This should not be happening when you're 20 years old. And it's very obvious that it's not from physical issues, it's not from poor health. I mean, it can be, but usually it's not from poor health if you're young, right? It's because your brain chemistry is so out of whack because you're spending hours on social media, playing video games, looking at porn, that regular real life activities just no longer stimulate you enough to hold an erection. So what is the solution to this? The solution is, well, first of all, being aware of this, starting to kind of limit your screen time as much as you can. If you're watching porn regularly, I highly encourage you to bring this out of your life because it desensitizes you to sex and sexual activity, even to orgasm, it actually limits your ability to experience these heightened full body orgasms that men can experience. I really, really recommend doing something called dopamine detoxing. This is where basically you spend, from 24 hours up to a week, however long you want to do it really, but you completely reduce or just eliminate the amount of dopamine stimulating activities you're doing. For me specifically though, if I can cut out pretty much all electronics, all screen time during my dopamine fast, that really does the trick for me. So me personally, every Sunday I'm doing a dopamine detox, and sometimes I'll do longer. I like to go on a camping trip or something like that. That's an easy way to get away from technology, get away from screens. But if you start to do this, start to incorporate this into your life, meaning that limit the amount of time you're on social media. If you play video games, if you watch porn, try to reduce these things in your life. And you will find that you have much more focus, much more clarity, your ability to find more contentment in things that you're doing. You'll enjoy like going for walks, reading books, these more grounded sort of in the moment things you will find much more sustained enjoyment of. And you will very likely start to have much better erections, much better sexual vitality, because your brain chemistry is in balance again. The most important sex organ in your body is between your ears. It's your brain. And when your brain chemistry is out of whack, you're going to have sexual issues. So this is a very, very important thing for all men to understand. So reduce your screen time, do dopamine detoxes. It was a life changer for me. So thank you for watching this video. I hope that you have enjoyed it. If you want to learn how to master your sexual energy, become a multi-orgasmic man, learn to have non-ejaculatory orgasms, check out my 6-week course, Multi-Orgasmic Man. I'll put more information in the video description below. Please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and leave a comment below. Have you ever experienced dopamine desensitization? I'd love to hear about it. Have a great day, my friends.